What's going on, everyone? Welcome in to Thursday Night Football. We have an action-packed Thursday game headed for us right now. Giants hosting the Eagles at home. Both of these teams, honestly, trending downwards. The Eagles were able to put up quite a lead against the Denver Broncos, but blew it all in the fourth quarter, allowing the Broncos to score 18 unanswered points. Eagles end up losing that game 21-17. And then with the New York Giants, they could not hold on to the football against the New Orleans Saints. 3 fumbles, 2 interceptions. This was an all-time bad performance from a Brian Daboll offense. And so they're looking to rebound here at home. The question now is, can they do it? I don't necessarily believe so. I mean, they're 7.5-point dogs for a reason. I definitely want to take a look at both of these sides, look at the injury report for both of these teams, and I think I've found a good amount of value heading into this game. But to be honest, Thursday Night Football is a really tough spot to play because you just don't know what each team is bringing to the table after a short week. Both of these teams playing in the noon slot on Sunday. There's a lot to go into whether or not they're going to A, be fully healthy, B, fully prepared in terms of having a game plan, and C, well rested enough. I mean, for the Giants, they were on the road. They had to come from New Orleans on Sunday, travel all the way back to New York. They get ready for practice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Obviously, no practice today. And then meanwhile, the Eagles, of course, at home, have to travel on the road. I don't know which day they did it. They might have done it Sunday or Monday, quite frankly. So both of these teams, a lot of unexpected stuff going on. And then outside of that, you've got the noise going on in the Eagles locker room, right? A ton of drama with A.J. Brown to start this season. Obviously, this is a guy who you think is one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, yet his catches, yards, and touchdowns do not say that same story. And it quite frankly has to do with the game planning, in my opinion. A.J. Brown is getting the targets that he desires, but in terms of getting open, he just has not been able to do so. Let's go down here and take a look before we talk about some injuries real quick. Let's see. Let's scroll up here to A.J. Brown. By the way, guys, I'm on the doinksports.com website. Go out and check it out for yourselves. I'm going to do a lot of explanations today on what I see here. But for starters, A.J. Brown right here, 8 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets. I mean, this is on par with what he was doing last season. Look at these numbers right here. 7, 6, 11, 15, right? A.J. Brown is getting the looks in this Eagles offense so far this season. Now, game number 1 versus Dallas, just 1 target, 1 reception for 8 yards. That to me is an anomaly. But here, this is the meat that we're looking at here. The problem that you see is 8 targets, 5 catches, right? 10 targets, 6 catches. That right there is 7 missed catches from the targets. My apologies. I scrolled down real quick. Let me go right back up. And then considering this game right here, 9 targets, but 2 catches, and another 8 targets, but 5 catches. Right now, he is only averaging around a 50% catch percentage on his targets. Meanwhile, Devontae Adams is at a 5-to-6 ratio. Even Jahan Dotson is a little bit above that. Dallas Goedert, of course, at around a 75% number. So for this number, for a wide receiver 1 in A.J. Brown to be this low from catch to target ratio, something tells me that something is definitely off in the Eagles offense. Not to mention, let's talk about our guy, Saquon Barkley, who, by the way, I'm predicting a big night from him, but so far this season, right, had that knee injury against the Broncos, only 6 carries, but overall has not reached any of the heights that he was reaching last season. Look at these games for Saquon Barkley. Okay, we see obviously 30, 43, 46, 88, and 60 so far this season, but 118 versus the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, 205 versus the Rams, 119 for Green Bay. I mean, out of these last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, 8 of those 9 games, he was eclipsing triple digits. That's an insane thing to think about. And so for this number here to sit at 85.5, him only eclipsing that one time so far this season, you have to wonder, what are the books thinking here, right? Even his touches are up, right? 18, 22, 18, 19. It's not like he's seen a massive reduction in touches, yet here we sit at an 85.5 number. I thought that was very interesting, and then looking at what the Giants have allowed this season, if we want to filter it out, obviously 18 touches for 97 yards for Javonte Williams, who's had a breakout season with the Cowboys. Amarion Hampton, 12 carries for 128 yards. Alvin Kamara, by the way, who's on the verge of losing his starting job with New Orleans, 8 carries for 27 yards. That is probably the most concerning part of looking at the opposition here. We haven't really seen the Giants go up against strong running back ones, right? Kareem Hunt, not a strong running back one. JCM, Bill Krosky Merritt, right? This guy was not ready to take over RB1 in week 1. And then, of course, with Kamara, he's losing his to Keandre or not Keandre Lambert Smith, Kendra Miller, excuse me. That's his name, backup running back for New Orleans. As you can see here, he actually had more touches last week than Kamara did, 10 carries for 41 yards. So major concern here. The Giants, of course, have only seen a strong running back like Barkley twice so far this season. And in both of those games, they go well over this 85.5-yard line. I think Barkley, who has become way more involved in the pass game that he has in the past, that's something else to look at here. We see that the Giants defense has allowed backs who get targets to go well over their projected line of 17.5 for Barkley. This is something that I definitely keyed in on. But first, before we get into any official picks, by the way, hello everyone in the chat. Welcome in. Super excited to see you guys. We're going to hop into the injury report right now. So, major factors here on the injury report. This is being updated as of today, I believe. Sways Bozeman, who is not a starter for this Giants team, I don't believe, is out. Demetrius Flanagan-Flowles is out. Another linebacker for the Giants. So we're seeing the Giants are losing some depth here at the linebacker position. This was updated yesterday. Darius Slayton is out for this game for the Giants. But major factor here in some of these player props that I've been thinking about, Tyrone Tracy Jr. was a limited participant in practice, and he is listed as a go for tonight's game. So we're going to see him in the backfield splitting carries with Cam Skattebo and potentially Devin Singletary as well. So major concern here for anybody with fantasy questions here about who do you take? Do you take Tyrone Tracy Jr.? Do you take Cam Skattebo? I really don't know which one is going to end up becoming the bell cow. As of right now, this is his first game back being, I guess, quote unquote, healthy. I would lean towards Cam Skattebo. I think he'll probably end up getting the majority of the run, especially considering that this is a short week, right? The system and the plays that you run from Sunday to Thursday, as I've heard from so many NFL players, it doesn't really change that much because you don't have time to install a new offense. Meanwhile, of course, defenses pretty much stay the same regardless. So I'm definitely curious to find out what's going to happen here for this Giants offense. I have a few predictions. We'll get into them in just a little bit, but reviewing this injury report over here for the Philadelphia Eagles, let's take a look. Obviously, Landon Dickerson, who I believe has missed the majority of this season, or at least the majority of the preseason as well, right? With that, I believe it was an ankle injury. Maybe it was something else. I believe it was a high ankle sprain. There was rumors about him getting tightrope surgery. Maybe I'm misremembering, but that's what I believe. He's out for tonight versus the Giants. This is the backup tight end for the Eagles, Grant Calcaterra, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Not really a factor considering Dallas Goedert gets the vast majority of the target share there amongst the tight ends. Saquon, like I said, missed heavy amount of action in the Denver Broncos game, but was a full participant in practice as of yesterday. So I fully expect him to be healthy going into this game. And when I say healthy, I'm not talking, oh, he feels 100%. I'm talking he's going to get the lion's share of the carries as he usually does in the Eagles backfield. Meanwhile, at the bottom of this injury report, as of yesterday, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, both questionable. These are major players in the Eagles defense. Let's check. I mean, Jalen Carter is probably the most important player on the Eagles defense. Let's do a quick Google search real quick and double check and make sure that Jalen Carter is still questionable. Let's see here. Jalen Carter arrives. He is still listed as questionable, according to Jay Clark, NBC. I believe that's NBC Philadelphia rap sheet. As of note, Jalen Carter is not a sure thing, according to the rap sheet. So there's definitely a lot of reports out there saying that Jalen Carter is still questionable and will probably be a game time decision. That tells me a lot because I don't think even if he's approved to play in this game, he's not going to get the full workload that he usually does. So I'm very curious to see how that works. Now, Byron Young, who I believe backs him up or sits beside him on the defensive line, has been injured as well. However, he is full go. He was a full participant at practice yesterday, and I believe he'll be playing a full workload, much like Jahad Campbell as well, dealing with the biceps injury. Injury report was updated yesterday. I believe he was taken off the injury report. He'll be a full participant tonight as well. So a few injuries for both of these teams. Obviously, it's hard to have a healthy team in the middle of an NFL season on a short week like this one, especially considering the travel circumstances for the Giants who are at home, having to come all the way from New Orleans. So I definitely think that this is a more questionable matchup than most. So first thing we're going to look at here is the team props, and we're going to talk about total points for both teams. The Eagles line is currently set at 24.5. In my opinion, guys, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I don't like either or. Could I see this game being a 13-10 slot fest? 100%. Could I see the Eagles, as they have done in the past, versus the Rams, the Commanders, the Chiefs last year, obviously, and then the Rams and the Buccaneers this season, and run up the score using their run game? Absolutely. It's a complete unknown. If we want to minimize this and just look at the Eagles this season thus far, they are only eclipsing 24.5 points 2 times. That was versus the Rams. And guess what? They barely did it. 7 or 6 of those points, actually, or maybe even 7 of those points, came on a blocked field goal to end the game. And I also believe they scored 7 points off of a blocked punt in that game. Meanwhile, versus the Buccaneers, 31 against them as well. I think special teams or defense scored a touchdown in that game. I'll have to go and double check that real quick. Hang on one second. I'm going to pull that up specifically so that I don't give you guys any misinformation here. Let's take a look. NFL Philadelphia Eagles. Meanwhile, while I continue to talk about this, 24.5 to me just seems like a lot of points to score on the road versus a Giants defense that I think has played pretty well so far this season. So box score for the Eagles-Rams game and box score for the Buccaneers game. Let's take a look at that. Defense. Eagles did score a touchdown on defense, and then special teams. Yeah, so just a special teams touchdown versus the Rams. And then for the Buccaneers game, they scored a defensive touchdown as well. So this Eagles offense has been kind of dependent, right, on the defense to attribute some of these points to going well over this 24.5 line. Looking at what they've done without the defense, 24 versus Dallas, 20 versus Kansas City, and 17 versus Denver. This is a team that when they play good defenses, and in my opinion, Kansas City and Denver have really good defenses. Their offense struggles tremendously. In that Dallas game, if you were watching it, you got to have a little bit of ball knowledge here. That was I believe that was actually the opening game on Thursday Night Football, right? That was the opening game for the NFL season. That was the game where the Eagles and Cowboys both scored on every single drive, I believe, to start the first half. And then in the second half, they started the game out slow or started the half out slow. And then that weather delay came in and just mucked up the whole game. And that was the end of it, right? So I don't think that the Eagles really have it in them to score 24 and a half, but would I be shocked considering what the Giants just went through against the New Orleans Saints? Absolutely not. I would not be shocked. I would lean under 24 and a half, but I'm not making that an official pick. By the way, if you've got some picks that you like a lot, throw them in the chat. I'd like to take a look at them as I'm going through all of this stuff. Let's move on now to the Giants. Their team total is at 16 and a half. Now, let's minimize that and just look at their 5 games so far this season versus the Eagles defense. The Eagles defense has actually allowed this in 5 of their 5 games. Meanwhile, the Giants have only scored this twice. One versus the Chargers in that start for Jackson Dart. I believe that was his first start of his NFL career. Gets the surprise win at home versus the Chargers. Meanwhile, the Eagles defense has allowed on average 22 points per game. Now, they've played significantly better offenses than the New York Giants have, right? The Broncos were probably the worst defense or worst offense that they've faced all season long, and they only scored 21 points. Meanwhile, the Giants have laid some big-time eggs in 3 of their games. 9 versus Kansas City, with multiple turnovers, 6 versus Washington, I believe, with multiple turnovers again. New Orleans, only 14 with multiple turnovers again. The key to success for this Giants offense is quite simply keep control of the football. If you don't give it up like you did versus the Chargers, guess what? You'll be far more competitive. Similarly to the Cowboys game, right? I think there was only one giveaway in that one from Russell Wilson, and they scored 37 points. So takeaways are going to be a massive factor in this game. The Eagles have been superb at creating turnovers and taking advantage of them, scoring not only defensively, but also offensively as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this Eagles defense has queued up for Jackson Dart in the dual threat game. I think it's hard to game plan for a quarterback like this on a short week. Usually when you have a Giants offense, I see D-Bets has just joined the stats here. Good evening and good luck. Potential misprice. I partially agree. I think 16 and a half is a tough one. I'm not going to give an official pick on it. I'm just taking a look here at the lines. Let me know what you like, by the way, D, in the chat. I'd like to see what you got. Let me go ahead and continue what I've got going on, though. I think the Giants, once again, the key to success is not turning over the football. Jackson Dart, I think the game plan is going to be very Dart-centric. Him, Cam Scatterbo, and maybe Tyrone Tracy, depending on what the workload looks like for him in this game. Overall, though, I think this will be a very ground-centric game, not to mention Darius Slayton is out for this game, so the pass game takes a major hit. I have several props there going for that as well. So let's continue and talk about this over-under. It sits at 40 and a half, which, guys, that's really low. Unbelievably low. But it's Thursday night football. It is a slop fest week in and week out. We see turnovers. We see defenses playing stout. Once again, I said earlier in this stream, it's hard to game plan in just 3 days. Offenses only have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to throw out a game plan. So you largely end up seeing some recycled stuff from last week, the stuff that worked for your previous offense, but the defense is queuing in on that, right? And they're going to be ready to stop you. Think about that Cowboys versus Eagles game, right? After the weather delay, they come out, 3 points were scored in that second half because they started to realize what the scheme was looking like. This Eagles defense, by the way, in the second half has been pretty damn stout outside of those 18 points that they allowed to Denver. And then think about this Rams game, right? 33 of those, I believe 14 of those were scored by Eagles special teams and defense. So 2 touchdowns for Barkley, Eagles -7.5 there from D-Bets. I don't hate it. Don't hate it at all. I'm going to have to take a look at that myself to figure out what I like about it. Now, one major factor here for this game is the fact that Saquon Barkley is playing up against his former team. And think about last season, by the way. Barkley and what he did to New York. Let's go and take a look at that real quick. Let me scroll up here real fast and go to Barkley. This is a great segue into some of our player prop picks here. Saquon Barkley versus the Giants last year, 17 carries, 176 yards on the ground, multiple fat runs, one for 55, and then, of course, 2 catches for 11 yards, finished with 187 yards total in the scrimmage yards category, and then a touchdown to follow with that. I am in full belief that the Eagles put the ball in Saquon Barkley's hands on the road. And this right here says the whole story, right? He's averaging 24 carries a game on the road, 128.6 yards. Now, he's been slumping in these games, but I think that just has to do with the fact that these games situationally didn't make a lot of sense for Saquon to be exploding out of the backfield. Now, another factor in this scenario here is the fact that Landon Dickerson is out. So I'm going to go ahead and offer up 2 alt player props. Number 1 is Saquon Barkley over 24.5 receiving yards plus 200. I'm looking at a ton of plus money plays here tonight because I think they have the most amount of value. Looking here, trying to diagnose this as an offensive coordinator for the Eagles, you see here, running backs have had a ton of success versus the Giants when you get them involved in the receiving game. 5 catches, 37 yards for Hampton, who ended up having 12 carries, 128 rush yards. That's a tremendous game. Javonte Williams, 18 carries, 97 yards, but he also had 6 catches for 33 yards. Barkley has been getting more and more involved in the pass game this season. Looking at what looking at his numbers this season compared to last year, look at the target share, right? He's averaging 3.8. But that number, if you look at his last 15, falls down to 3.2, quite frankly, because you have this stretch here where he's catching 2 or fewer passes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row. So I definitely think that Barkley this season is far more involved. I definitely think that this offense looks really close to what they did last year, especially in the middle of the season. So I think Barkley is going to have to get far more involved in the pass game for Jalen Hurts to be able to air this out. Now, I've also got a good friend of mine here, James Hill, in the chat. Evening, James. Good luck to you tonight, sir. He says two teams with very similar offensive styles. And I holistically agree, right? Jackson Dart, Jalen Hurts. I think Hurts is a far better passer of the football than Dart is, right? But the scheme is pretty much the same. It's almost an RPO type look, but really heavily involving running backs. You've got 1 or 2 wide receivers that you heavily involved in the pass game. A strong tight end like Dallas Goedert, Theo Johnson. Tons of similarities here for both of these teams. So I think both defenses are going to have a good look earlier this week in practice. So looking at Barkley, though, like I said, performed extremely well versus the Giants last year when he played. I think he always wants to prove a point to New York whenever he plays them. I believe he said that in multiple interviews. I think the Eagles on a short week lean on him some more. They're going to give him his standard 18, 19 carries a game. And you could see when that happened earlier this season with the Cowboys, 18 carries, 97 yards here for Javonte Williams. And I think Saquon, obviously, a much better back. So Number one alt play, 24 and a half receiving yards for Barkley. Number two alt play is over 109 rushing yards for Saquon. I'm expecting an explosion here from this Eagles run game. I think in a short week, they decide to hammer Barkley early and often in this game, regardless of what the score is. I don't think the Giants are going to be able to pull away in this game at any point. If the Giants are going to win, it's going to be a close one. And so the Eagles are always going to be pounding the rock in this game. So two props here for Saquon. Saquon over 109 and a half rushing yards plus 240, and Saquon over 24 and a half receiving yards plus 200. And that's using Fanatics and Hard Rock right there. Plus 230 now. I got it at plus 240 using Fanatics. Here we see it plus 200 using Hard Rock. Let's continue and talk about this Dallas Goedert prop that I really liked here. Dallas Goedert has only played in 4 games of the 5 for the Eagles, but he has been a massive red zone target for this Eagles offense. He yeah. He did not play in week 2. I can't remember who that was to. I think that they played. Let me see here. I think it was to the Chiefs. Yeah. They played the Chiefs in week 2. Goddard did not play in that game. He's come back. He's gotten a limited amount of target share in the game on the 21st and the 28th of September, but then, of course, gets his full target share that you usually see with Goddard. 9 targets, 3 catches, just 19 yards. Now, I like all of his props here, but I see his anytime touchdown has actually climbed up to plus 260 using underdog. I had him at plus 240. So if you could find him at plus 260, that's really advantageous in my opinion. He scored 4 touchdowns in the 4 games that he's played so far this season. This is a major red zone target for the Eagles. Looking at red zone target receptions, despite the fact that he missed an entire game, still is second on the team in red zone target share. That is a massive stat to take a look at here. Now, A.J. Brown sitting down there at 16.7. I like him for an anytime touchdown. That's not my official pick because look at the difference in value here. You're buying nearly, that's on Novig, but let's take a look at a major sports book. FanDuel's got him at plus 190. So Goddard gets a higher red zone target share. He's caught more touchdowns, and you're getting a whole probably 50-ish points bought on an anytime touchdown. That's a lot of value in my opinion. So that's why I'm going with him, but I don't hate A.J. Brown here. Obviously, Hurts, Barkley, both of these guys have almost scored a touchdown in every game, 4 touchdowns in 5 games for both of them. Barkley receiving 50% of the red zone rush share, 16% of the red zone target share, and anytime touchdown for him is almost a given. And the same can go to Hurts, right? 42%, the legendary signature tush push for the Eagles. Both of those guys for an anytime touchdown are definitely plays worth considering, but value-wise, that's not the play for me. I think I took Saquon anytime touchdown last week. I don't think he got it due to his injury, so I'll be looking elsewhere, specifically towards Dallas Goedert for this game, anytime touchdown. So that is 3 of my 7 picks. Let's continue to talk about one specific over-under prop that I like. There is something that's really off to me about the over-under 12 and a half in the second quarter for both of these teams. Looking at the 5 games that both of these teams have played each, they're allowing it in 60% of their games. With the Giants or with the Eagles here versus the Broncos. That Broncos offense was anemic to start this game. The Eagles score a touchdown here, and the Broncos offense came alive. Now, I think the Giants and the Broncos offense are pretty damn similar, if you ask me. And I think they're going to take a lot of notes from the Giants are going to take a lot of notes from Denver in this fourth quarter and how they were able to put up 18 versus that stout Eagles defense. So I expect the Giants to at least score a field goal here. I fully believe that they can. And then for the Eagles, I think they score 10 points. right here in this spot. They scored a touchdown last week. I definitely think this Giants defense is not as good as the Denver Broncos are. So I think they'll be able to score a touchdown with relative ease here in the second quarter. Now, let me pause real quick and take a small sip of water. Like I said, throw your picks in the chat. I want to see what you guys got. D Betts has already thrown in the YouTube chat. He's got Saquon for 2 touchdowns and the Eagles minus 7.5. I like the Saquon 2 touchdowns. Let's go see what that value's looking like. Plus 390 is not terrible. It's just always hard for me to get behind a player scoring 2. I know that it happens. I don't know how frequently it happens. Let's look at Saquon's last 15 games. 1, 2, 3, 4 games out of his last 15. So buying it at plus 390, that's not horrendous odds, especially considering that it's versus the Giants. I fully believe that he can do this. But to me, considering that he's only scored 1 in each of his first 4 out of 5 games, I don't know. That to me, I like the play. I like the play a lot. I just won't make it an official one here tonight. I want to see it before I go ahead and predict it for the next time. Although, with that being said, I know that the value on it will drop if he actually does it versus the Giants. So let me take a quick sip of water and then I'll keep talking. Okay. Okay. Let's continue. Let's talk about this second quarter prop here once again. The Eagles have hit this in 60% of their games. This is team props over under. This is what I'm looking at. Over under 12.5. Oh, that line has actually dropped tremendously. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I'll be scratching this from my official plays here because that line has dropped to minus 130. I only look at minus 120 to minus 110 or obviously plus money plays for the vast majority of my player props, over under, team props, and sides because I'm looking for value. I do not think putting 30 extra cents on your dollar for anything is worth it, especially if it's kind of a 50-50. And it pretty much is, right? 60-40 is close enough to me, especially with a 5-game sample. That's not enough, in my opinion, to hammer out that over under 12.5. That line was, when I was looking at it earlier, at minus 110. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the old iPad here, and I will be scratching that from the official call out plays. Just quite frankly, not enough value for me to consider that a play that I would want to advertise out to you guys. I'm using doinksports.com, by the way, which takes a live feed of every major sports book out there and then feeds it back to me so that I can see what we're looking like here on any player prop, basically. Receptions, rush attempts, rush yards, receiving yards, pass yards, quarterback rush attempts, anytime touchdowns, over unders, team prop over unders, the sides. We get injury updates as well. So be sure to check out doinksports.com. Use my code down here. That's PLIZONT for 25% off of any package of your choosing. That's, once again, guys, is doinksports.com. Make sure you take a look at it. So let's continue and talk about what I was liking about this. I was liking the over-under 12.5 for the over-under here in the second quarter, but I no longer like it because the best odds you can get is minus 130, I believe, at FanDuel. So we'll move on and talk about some Giants player props that I like before I get into a bit of a summary here, talking about this Eagles-Giants game. By the way, once again, I'm gonna throw this out there just because I'm really curious to see what your plays look like. Let me know what you guys got in the chat. We've already gotten a couple plays in the chat here. Saquon Barkley for 2 touchdowns, Eagles minus 7.5. I want to know what you think here, but let's continue and talk about what we see here in this game in terms of value. I think there is a good amount of value in Giants player props. For starters, Jackson Dart is the first guy that I want to look at. I don't know what the pass game is going to look like tonight. Darius Slayton is out for the Giants, and I believe we can take a look at him. Yes, let's take a look at his game log for the Giants. He was receiving let's see, starting back in on the 21st, started getting a fair amount of the targets there for the Giants. Now, 6-4, 4-3 doesn't look like a ton of targets, but considering how little the Giants pass the football, that's something significant to take into account here. The fact that he got 6 targets versus the Saints is important to me. So that to me strikes as a guy who's really involved in the pass game. Let's go take a look at a team stat real quick. I'm trying to plug some outside info here real quick. Just give me one moment. Passing. Let's take a look at passing attempts. Yeah, the Giants are middle of the pack in the NFL in passing attempts so far this season. So Darius Slayton getting a fair amount here. And I think he was the second leading receiver over these last 3 weeks for the Giants. The big factor as well, Malik Neighbors out for the season. So your number 1 and number 3 receiver are out for this game. All eyes to me turn to Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, and they're going to be heavily focused on the run game. I think Dart is going to get a fair amount of rush attempts. The over-under at let's see, let's take a look. 6.5. That's pretty sharp. I think it will go over that. I like it over 7.5 for plus 145. I definitely think we're going to see him not only on design runs, but scrambles as well. But the one that I love here is over under 37.5. Now, people sit here and think, Pleasant, why would you ever take 37.5 if the Eagles have only allowed it in 20% of their games? Well, it's quite frankly because the Eagles haven't faced a dual threat like Jackson Dart. Bo Nix is the closest thing to it. 3 carries, 22 yards. Mahomes was on the run for his life in that game at home for the Chiefs. 7 rush attempts, 66 yards for Patrick Mahomes, a long of 22. Dart is by far the most talented rusher that the Eagles have seen all season long. I think over, let's see, my alt play, I believe, was over 44.5 for Jackson Dart at plus 140 using underdog. That's my play. Let me see what I sniped it at earlier. Oh, that's exactly what I had it at. Jackson Dart over 44.5 plus 140 using underdog. That has tremendous amounts of value. In the 2 starts that he has so far this season, 10 carries, 54 yards, 7 carries, 55 yards. I fully expect him to do it once again. The Saints, albeit, did not spy him that well in that game. I think the Eagles will have a better chance at that, but there's no guarantees. So I like Jackson Dart over 44.5. I also like him over 7.5 rush attempts plus 145. I'll plug that in as an official pick as well. I'm actually going to write that down real quick. 1 unit on Jackson Dart over 7.5 rush attempts. He did that in his first game against the Chargers. I think he'll do it again here versus the Eagles. Like I said, short week. And given the fact that the Giants are down their number 1 and number 3 receiver, I think they're going to lean more on the run game. Dart is going to have to be a heavy factor in that. So Jackson Dart over 7.5 rush attempts. That is plus 145, and that's using Fanatics. Sorry, guys, a little under the weather today. Nose a little stuffy, but you'll have to forgive me. Let's move on now, though. His line at 178.5 passing yards, to me, is a line that I would be considering taking the over on. However, I am very concerned with what this Giants receiving core looks like. I think the 2 tight ends, Theo Johnson and I believe it's Davis or Daniel Bellinger. That's his name. Those guys were heavily involved in the pass game last week. A combined 10 catches for 86 or 85 yards and a pair of touchdowns from Theo Johnson. Big factor to me in this game, this Thursday night football is going to be Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger. I think the Giants are going to line up in some big 22, 21 personnel. Oh, camera stopped working. Let's try that again. Let's see if we can get this to work here. Man, the technical difficulties the last few streams have been pretty crazy in my opinion. But now Hello? Yep, that worked. Let's see. See if we can get it back up. Logitech Brio, activate. And we were muted. My deepest apologies. Hello, everyone. Welcome back in. We've got some green screen issues here. Got my cat over here. That's Misdemeanor, by the way. Say hello, Misdemeanor. I digress. Let's continue and talk about some other Giants player props that I like. I just talked about Jackson Dart, over 7.5 rush attempts, over 44.5 rush yards. The next two player props that I want to talk about are two Giants receiving props. Number one, Wan'Dale Robinson, who is the wide receiver one far and away tonight for the Giants. As you can see, his target share sits around 20% so far this season. I fully expect that number to be up here at that 25% value tonight, considering that there are no healthy Giants receivers that were starting outside of him in week one. Malik Neighbors out, Darius Slayton out. So 8 catches, 142 yards at the Cowboys, 8 targets, 6 receptions for 55 yards versus the Commanders. This is as we scroll up here, let's scroll back down as one of those lines just updated. Let's look at Wan'Dale Robinson. His line right now, over under 5.5 catches, is plus 143. You can actually get it for even money down here at over 4.5, but I like the value here at over 5.5. At a major book, you can find it Fanatics plus 135. That's exactly where I found it earlier. So this is going to be a play that I think is worthy of taking. I think Wan'Dale Robinson will probably see another 10 to maybe even 12 targets. The Eagles against wide receiver ones, by the way, fairly weak. Cortland Sutton, 8 catches, 99 yards. Emeka Ibuka, 4 catches, 101 yards. Tyquan Thornton even had a decent day, 2 catches, 59 yards. But I'm looking mainly at wide receiver ones, which is what I identify Wan'Dale Robinson as in this offense. CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, Cortland Sutton, all were able to have field days against the Eagles offense. All I'm asking for is 6 catches here from Wan'Dale Robinson plus money. That's a ton of value. That's a play that I want to take. And then last but certainly not least in terms of value, I'm looking at the red zone threat in the pass game for the Giants. That's Theo Johnson. He caught 2 touchdowns last week versus the Saints. I actually had him on an anytime touchdown last week, plus 550, I believe. And I think he's going to do it again. The other prop that I like in this game right now is a Jackson Dart anytime touchdown plus 350. I think that has a tremendous amount of value. Now, Dart only has 1 touchdown out of his 4 games, I believe. Yeah, but in his starts, though, 1 out of 2 games did he score a touchdown. I fully expect that to be the case yet again for the Giants. I think the game is going to be largely in his hands on a short week. So be sure to look out for a Jackson Dart anytime touchdown. Now back to Theo Johnson. The Eagles have been pretty stout against allowing touchdowns to tight ends, but the fact that his touchdown or his red zone target share here is all the way up at 36.4%. His value at plus 430 is undeniable. I am of full belief that he's going to see at least 1, if not 2, targets in the red zone. He's averaging 1.6 right now. I believe he had 3 in the game versus New Orleans. So the Eagles, like I said, fairly strong against tight ends so far this season. Looking back last year, we can see that they were fairly weak in that Vic Fangio defense. So I think this number could flip here. Theo Johnson, like I said, probably receiving target number 2 here tonight. I don't think Jalen Hyatt is going to be able to step up to this level here for the Giants tonight. So I fully expect Theo Johnson to be very active in the pass game. And his line actually just moved, ladies and gentlemen, to plus 410. It was at plus 430. So that is a major factor that I'm looking at here. Theo Johnson, anytime touchdown is my official play here, as well as Jackson Dart, anytime touchdown, plus 360. That number has gone way up from where I believe it was started at plus 290. So we're talking about an increase in 70 points of value. So that's all my plays here for tonight. Recap real quick before I do another breakdown. We got Saquon over 24.5 receiving. Saquon over 109 rushing yards. I think this is his game. The Giants or the Eagles have shown on the road they put the ball game in his hands. And against the Giants last year, he had a field day. I fully expect him to do the exact same thing this week. Then on the Giants side of things, we got a Jackson Dart over 7.5 rush attempts. Jackson Dart over 44.5 rush yards. A Jackson Dart anytime touchdown. A Theo Johnson anytime touchdown. And Wan'Dale Robinson over 5.5 receptions. All of those props just have a lot of value to me because I definitely think that due to the injuries in Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton, those 3 guys are going to be expected to pick up the game here for all of that production lost. So plug me in on those 3 guys. I'm really locked in on their player props. The only reason I didn't like any Scatterboo props tonight or Tyron Tracy props is because I don't know what a split backfield looks like for both of them. If I had to lean anything, I'd be leaning for Scatterboo just because Tracy is coming off of a short week where he didn't play on Sunday. It's hard to believe for me that he's any healthier than he was on Sunday. So with that being said, that's why I like Dart, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Theo Johnson, and I want to stick away from Cam Scatterboo. I did have another play. As a matter of fact, we'll go back and take a look at the team props here. Let's see that line of over under. Oh, this is team props. Team props over under. Oh, that's in the third quarter. Nope, I don't like that. Let's take a look here at 12.5. Yeah, so I found this play earlier tonight, guys, at over under 12.5 for minus 110. If you got that, that's a great play. Wasn't able to announce it on the stream, so we won't make it an official play here. Despite this line not moving from 12.5 to 11.5 or anything like that, the actual value moved from minus 110 to minus 130. I believe FanDuel, if we want to click this and track it up here, FanDuel has it at minus 136. So that line keeps moving down. So a lot of money's going on that second quarter over. Probably some money still on that first half over 20.5. The line at 40.5 makes me think this is going to be a relatively close game. The Eagles are trending downward. The Giants are struggling. If I had to pick anything, I'm going with the Giants plus 7.5. That's a lot of points on the road for the Eagles, a divisional rivalry too. Let's take a look at the last 5 between the Eagles and Giants. We can see, let's go take a look at the sides against the Giants and against the Eagles. The Eagles are only covering this in 3 of the 5. They blew out the Giants last season in October. They actually lost the Giants in January. I believe that's because the Eagles benched all their starters. Similarly here, the Eagles benched all their starters. The Giants were still playing football. So both of these games here, the Eagles did not have their starters and were not able to cover a 7.5 point spread. But in the games that they do, they absolutely cover the spread. And we can look at the last 10 matchups here, and we can see that the Giants' recent wins are coming in late January, where we can clearly see that the Eagles are not playing their starters. So that is the major cause for concern here. The one time the Eagles did play them in January, it was in a playoff game on January 21st, 2023. They blew the doors off of the New York Giants, beat them by 31. So I retract my statement saying the Giants cover a 7.5-point spread. I am officially back to a no pick here for this game. The sides, neither of these present tremendous amounts of value. Both lines sitting -7.5 plus 101 plus 7.5 minus 102. It's exactly even. It's a 50-50 coin flip. That's kind of what we see in this game so far. I don't like it at all. The Eagles, by the way, have failed to cover a 7.5-point spread all season long. The Giants, when they lose, usually are getting the doors blown off of them. The Saints, that game wasn't even close, regardless of the fact that it was only 12 points. The Saints I think they kicked 5 or 6 field goal attempts last week. That game easily could have been another 40 to 20 blowout, like the Kansas City game here, 22-9 against the Commanders, 21-6. When they play good defenses, by the way, the Giants struggle tremendously. I think the Saints, underrated defense here, only scored 14 points. Kansas City, underrated defense, 9. The Chargers have a pretty damn good defense, 21. And then the Commanders, who I think have a top 10 defense in the league, 6 points on the road as well. So I just don't know about the sides or the over-under. If somebody's out here telling you that they do know, they're probably wrong. I just can't pick for certain on either way. But there's a ton of value that I found in this game, player props-wise. That's usually my bread and butter. I like player props a lot. It's hard for me to pick who wins these games. Like I said, the Giants, by the way, were up 14-3 versus the Saints, and then the Saints scored 23 unanswered points. So these games flip-flop constantly, and it all depends on who actually does their job. And quite frankly, if you ask me which unit, and by the way, when I say who does their job, I'm talking about a unit, not a group of or not a select few of individuals, right? The Giants lost the game versus the Saints due to a collective effort, right? I believe Darius Slayton fumbled, Cam Scatterbo fumbled, Jackson Dart fumbled. He threw a couple of interceptions. So it's a team effort out here. I look at individual props because a lot of them aren't dependent on a holistic team. Whereas when we're talking sides or team props, that is considering all 44 active starters and then the other 26 bench players for both teams. So with that being said, these are my plays for tonight. Jalen Carter just announced is inactive. Thank you so much to Pascal Wagers for throwing that in there. I think that plays a major factor in what the Giants' game plan is or how well they can execute it. I would definitely start looking at those Cam Scatterbo rush props. I won't make it official play just because I've only got a couple more minutes here in this stream to talk here. But overall, let me recap what I've got for you here for this game. And then I'll just kind of do some closing remarks, talk about the schedule for the rest of this week. So I found all of these plays, by the way, doinksports.com. I'm on the streaming platform right now. Be sure to take a look at it, guys. It is amazing. You can look at Thursday Night Football tonight for free. If you like it, take a look at the subscription services. Use my code PLIZONT, that's PLIZONT, for 25% off of any package of your choosing. I think there is a tremendous amount of value here. I leverage and educate myself before I make any plays. By the way, I just want to say, let me take a look at my overall record so far this season. I'm up 36.09 units, 143 correct picks, 128 incorrect picks. That's about a 52.7 or maybe a 52.8% correct percentage, but yet I'm up 36 whole units, right? We're on a heater right now. In the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we're up 32 units. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 winning days, and it's all thanks once again to the Doink Sports website. I found so many valuable picks here. It's obviously worth taking a look at. Be sure to go out and do that. That's doinksports.com. Use my code Plizont. That's PLIZONT for 25% off. And then speaking of Plizont, be sure to find me at Plizont on anywhere. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I talk college football, NBA, and the NFL. I pay attention to all of it. So be sure to check me out at any of those social media platforms. So real quick recap. Shout out to Pascal Wagers, James Hill, D Bets for hopping into the chat here. Let's go over the plays that I've got. Saquon Barkley, I think he has a field day. The Giants, when they play big running back ones, they are getting torched. So I've got Saquon, alt plays over 24.5 receiving yards, over 109 rushing yards. I've got a Dallas Goedert anytime touchdown. Those are the three Eagles plays that I like. Jackson Dart, I've got 3 props on him. Over 7.5 rushing attempts, alt play. Over 44.5 rushing yards, alt play. And then an anytime touchdown for him. Theo Johnson, I've got him for an anytime touchdown. He's been the primary red zone target for this Giants team. And then last but certainly not least, I've got Wan'Dale Robinson, over 5.5 catches. All of these plays are plus money plays. Be sure to go and check them out. Check me out as well on social media. That's going to do it for this stream. Shout out to everyone who joined in. Good luck tonight. It's going to be one hell of